I would say I wholeheartedly agree with Matt, but I would do a little caveat to it. Um, there's no point in planning if you're not going to do anything. And so for me, December is really a great month to pick up the phone and make phone calls. We talked about it last month, guys, of just about tips and just how to use December, that time to go through your Rolodex, go through your CRM system, and pick up the phone and make calls and so forth. But with that being said, when I'm going to pick up the phone this month, I'm going to make a bunch of calls. We need to know what's on people's minds. We need to be ready to answer some tough questions. What are, excuse me, what are the things that people are concerned about 2025 when it comes down to real estate, or more importantly, just what questions do they have? Because it doesn't. We need to be prepared, because if we get on the phone, we start making calls, and people start asking us questions about the market, and we don't have an intelligent response. It's not going to go very, very well for you. So the first one that I'm finding the top question people have on their minds is interest rates. And it's been the top question for the past 2 years. But now people are going into the new year and going, what's going on with interest rates? Because there's a lot of people who do want to buy and do want to transact in 2025. So it just becomes that game of, where are rates today? When are rates expected to go down? When is going to be the optimum time to buy, just as far as rates go? So they want to know when or if rates are going to drop. That's what people want to know. There's so much stuff, so much, conversations going on in the news about rates. And if rates do drop, they want to know how far are they going to drop. Obviously, we are not economists. We do not have a crystal ball. You definitely can give your thoughts and opinions, but you got to be very, very careful how you do that. You can't make any kind of guarantees. But I have thoughts of how far rates are going to drop, where I think rates might be at the end of 2025. And so I can have those conversations with the caveat of this: I make no guarantees. And then a lot of people need to refinance. And so this is one of the questions that we have, that people did get into mortgages that are, 7.5%, 8%. And what is that magic number? Like, where does that interest rate need to be for me to be considering doing a refinance? And so with all of that being said, you have to have a trusted lender that you work with that can really help you strategize a lot of these answers.
Mike, that's probably the most important thing. The question is great, and people have. I think some people may be more numb to this situation, interest rates at this point. I mean, that's all they've heard for 2 years. Everybody promised they were going to get better next quarter, promised they were going to get better next quarter, and they never did. So I think people are somewhat kind of like, But if you can be the source of the source, and you've got somebody who's really good, like a Justin Frederick or Dominic or, any of the people that are out there.
Or our own Matt Baker.
Let's
give him
Matt
some
Baker,
love.
I apologize. Yes, Matt.
He
Thank
left.
You. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk crap about Matt.
Yeah.
No.
And so, or even call Mindy Thompson. The thing is that you need to have this information and ask it from different lenders, because you're going to get possibly some different information. Just from that perspective. But, interest rates, sure, people want to know that, mostly in the more affordable housing perspective. Your first time, your family, people that are being forced to increase their house size because they've got kids now, they just had babies, or unfortunately, of course, jobs cause. But, they're the people that are really worried about this interest rate. The people that are in that million plus, they sometimes pay cash, so they really aren't as affected by it.
But I think that's a good
Know
point.
your market.
Exactly. Know your demographic.
Yeah.
Know if you're picking up the phone, because the goal for this is to leverage people's concerns on the conversations that you're going to have with them. So if you're just cold calling or blasting through your contact list and you're not actually paying attention to who you're calling, if you're about to call a cash buyer and you don't have any information on what that's going to look like for 2025, but you're all prepped for interest rates and they don't care about interest rates, you've just wasted that phone call. So it's not that you're going to build a thesis on interest rates for 2025. You want to know enough, so if the question comes up from the person that you're talking to, you're able to have a decent conversation and then point them towards a lending partner that can have the better conversation. When you're calling on these, Mike, if you have someone talking about interest rates, are you wanting them to get pre-qualified? Are you wanting them to meet with a lender, have that good conversation with someone about what could they afford in 2025?
Well, that's a great question because we're going to actually kind of really get into it next week on next week's 3-pack. But the best time to call the lender is now.
Yeah.
It's always now because whether it doesn't matter your timetable. What matters is building that strategy. The worst scenario for a buyer is to finally go, okay, come April. Okay, now I'm ready to buy. We're going to relocate for schools. Now I'm going to talk to a lender. And then we find out that there's something on your credit report that's going to take 6 months to repair or fix or whatever the case is. And so it never hurts to talk to the lender now to build that strategy and to understand. And I was going to also say on your source of information, when you talk to your lender, where do they get their information from?
Yeah, good point.
I know Matt Baker and Justin Frederick pretty much follow the same group of economists. And so I follow them and I get my information from them that comes from that source because it's just great information. So just be ready to tackle the question.
And I think the other thing too is make sure when you're talking to them, you're asking about the unique product they have, because again, they, people might have just talked to their lender last week, but when you talk to somebody and all of a sudden you bring up the fact that, if you want to buy an investment property and you can purchase that property without having to basically qualify short of having, a lot of little reasons.
All right, second one. I was very hesitant to bring this one up, but okay.
We did anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be political at all.
Sure.
Our opinions mean absolutely nothing. And to be honest, your opinions mean absolutely nothing to us when it comes down to your feelings about the election results. The fact of the matter is, whether you like it or not, Trump will be our next president, and it is on people's minds. And how do I know that? Because almost all of us who are in the day-to-day real estate business, all we've been hearing from buyers for the past 3 to 4 months is, I want to wait till the election. So it's on their minds. And so, regardless of your feelings on the election, keep your thoughts and opinions and your passion to yourself when you are having conversations with potential buyers. You do not want to alienate anyone because food on the table is much better than just offering my opinion to anyone, right? That's what we're into this. But people want to know, this is the questions that I'm getting. Now that we know that Trump will be taking office on January 20th, how will it impact interest rates? How will it impact home prices? And how will it impact the real estate market? I'm not offering my thoughts and opinions on this because I'm going to encourage every agent to figure out themselves, because depending on where you lean and how passionate you are about it might impact your answer to it. That is fine, but just be prepared, because these are the questions that I'm getting, and I have my slew of answers and how I'm helping people, observe and just plan for and strategize for how I think the housing market will be impacted over a Trump win.
So I like the last part of each of these bullet points. And I think if you focus on these last parts, so I don't care about Trump's policies per se. I care about what is the new administration's impact on interest? What's it, home prices, house real estate? Because, if everything comes down to the way it's supposed to be, it should be somewhat bipartisan anyway. So, but I would go out, like right now, the Eller School of Business at the University of Arizona is just getting prepared to do their annual 2025 forecast. You can do it virtual. You can sign up for it. It's expensive. It's a couple $100, but, or you can just wait for me to give it to you at the end of the month. So the fact is, though,
I'll go with the latter.
Yeah, there you go. So, but what I mean by this is that one school, you also need ASU's School of Real Estate over WP Carey. And why am I saying these things? Well, because they're polarized as far as their opinions are concerned. One's very liberal and one's very conservative. So you want multiple sources, multiple sets of information from both sides to be able to have some kind of clue. And they're not, let me just say this to you. They're not calling you and having a conversation with you about how this is going to impact next year because they think you've got the crystal ball. They're just looking, like you, for another set of data, another set, why would I want to get into the house? How's it going to affect my investment properties? How's it going to affect me buying an investment property? How's it going to affect the equity in my home? All these different kinds of things are important. but bring some kind or offer to send them some kind of data, and that data comes from a national resource or a very, very highly respected resource.
I think that the main point to remember here is these are things that your potential calls are going to bring up.
Yeah.
So you want to be generally educated. But the big point number 2 is do not get opinionated. Do not get emotional. I like what Todd said. How is the current administration's policies expected to impact X? That is going into the conversation. If someone asks you that question, having resources in your back pocket, the source of the source, to be able to help navigate them through that conversation is important. The goal for this, as Mike has said, Todd has said, and I have said, is keeping your relationship with these individuals going. When they are sitting around the holiday table, the multiple times they are over the next couple weeks, real estate is going to come up. It always does. When it does, your name needs to follow any question being asked. You know what? That's a great question. I'm going to call Mike because he's a great realtor and he's going to have that answer for you. That is your goal for this phone call. Keep that as the pin so you don't get in these deep, dark rabbit holes you shouldn't be in.
All right. Then the third one is, and it hasn't gone away. People want to know, and people are asking. I'm waiting for the Phoenix market to crash. I'm waiting for prices to drop considerably before I get in the game. And so people, now that the election has come and gone, and we have not seen a dramatic drop in interest rates, we're seeing home prices continue to tick up. Will the Phoenix market crash? And so I get this question a lot, and these are the things you can't argue and debate emotion.
Correct.
You really can't. And so I help my clients understand the things that I focus on when I don't want to dig into the numbers, into the data with them as much as just this is just how I see life. This is how I see real estate. These are the things that I am focusing on. And oh, by the way, I am still buying and I'm still investing. And this is why. I'm always attuned to what's going on in the jobs market. Jobs are important.
Always.
As long as companies are still moving to Arizona, as long as people are still moving to Arizona, as long as we're still creating jobs, and as long as we still have low inventory, and I know people are looking at the inventory numbers going, oh my gosh, inventory is so high.
Should have 35,000.
Inventory is still considerably low.
Correct.
I just can't wrap my head around how our outside of Palo Verde plant blowing up, I can't understand. The numbers don't lie. I mean, these are the things that the focus on. So you need to be prepared to answer this question.
So basically, Mike, I love this because this is how to approach life, number 3. I mean, there's so many applications of this, not necessarily the bullet points underneath, but the concept of people's unwillingness to move forward based on some external thing that they're relying upon to have happen, and if the interest rates never come down, then they'll be paying so much more for properties, obviously all these different types of things, as we've talked about over the years. But the best way that you can be prepared to talk about it, well, the market crash. The market's always going to crash. The question is when. I have no idea. It could be 10 years from today. It could be 2 months from today. But again, you have to stay away. These are like a mystery shopper with fair housing. They're trying to get you to step on your own foot. And the last thing you want to do is give answers, defined answers to any of these questions. You want to lead them to other resources. You want to have other resources available to be able to do it. But Mike, one last thing. When you sit down with your investors, it's about down payment, it's about cap rate, it's about interest, it's about sale price. It's all these different factors that ultimately will determine whether or not the property is a good investment. I remember, back in 1996 in Arizona was the place and still is the place that people want to buy houses because of our fast, forcible detainer action laws, because of the fact that, it's still affordable. The cap rates are being met better than in some other places. I'm not saying you couldn't go to Tennessee or someplace else and find a great investment. I'm talking about Arizona, though. And so once you know that equation that you know so well, Mike, and you just bring people back to the equation.
Yeah.
You can make a successful investment in any marketplace as long as you know what you're doing and know what those criteria are.
And if it's the greatest investment area in the nation, you can make a terrible investment.
Well,
I'm just saying if you're not
There's
following
alwa-
if you're not following the numbers
Yeah, yeah.
and following the data.
well, if you follow emotion instead of logic, you're
right.
absolutely right.
Well, and the one thing that's not on the will Phoenix market crash is the affordability question. And that is a big question for first-time home buyers. And that's a lot of the people that are going to be sitting around talking right now is, can they afford to buy a home in 2025? So that's a question you need to be prepared to answer. And that goes back to Todd's point up at number one, having conversation with your lenders about those unique things that they're able to provide. Matt talked about a couple weeks ago. They have that first-time buyer program to help offset the down payment. Those are things you need to have in your back pocket as you are having these conversations, and that comes from building relationship with your lenders too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
and
a good one, Mike.
so the point of the matter, the whole point of this is these are just understand what's on people's minds because these are the questions, these are the talking points, and you've got to be prepared for these questions because this is what people want to talk about. And the good news, as we always say in our saying on our team, is nobody wants to talk to a realtor, but everybody wants to talk real estate. These are your opportunities to have deeper real estate conversations.